What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I drop 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm going to keep it 100 with you.
Every morning, every night, for 40 days.
Going to be a long 40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You are watching 40 Days, 40 Nights. We are in night 4 of this odyssey where I, EJ Stewart, host on WFAN, host obviously on New Generation Media through our podcast channel and our YouTube channel. We'll be giving all things EJ loves to talk about, sports content. We're going to have video game content today. Superhero content, pop culture content, hip-hop content, all that content. I'll be doing live shows 40 days for 40 nights. One show, 8 a.m., which I did earlier this morning. Another show, 6 p.m., which I'll be beginning tonight. This is night 4. We'll be doing this for 40 days and 40 nights every weekday, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m., 6 p.m. And we got a doozy for you. We got a lot of really good topics, fun topics to talk about today. We'll be talking about the future of the Philadelphia Eagles. General Manager Howie Roseman spoke to the press today, and the big question being, what is the future of A.J. Brown? We'll get to the latest on that. Also, some pretty big injury news on the NFL playoff front. We're just a couple of days away to getting back to NFL playoff action. A star QB showed up on the injury report with a brand new injury. They expect to play, but now it leads to questions about how effective they can be coming up this weekend. So we'll talk about an injury to a star QB. Speaking of star QBs injured, Patrick Mahomes breaks his silence. We haven't heard from Mahomes in a little bit, but he is going to talk as well. We're going to hear from him about what he sees as his opportunity to come back and play in week 1 of the NFL season. Week 1, despite tearing his ACL in mid-December, he wants to be ready for the season to begin for him week 1 in September of next year. We'll talk about whether that's a good decision on his part. We have a trade request in the NBA, and we have some wrestling news that we have not talked wrestling. That's probably the one aspect of this, big tent that I've created for content that can be talked about on this show. That's one thing we haven't got to, but we're going to get into some wrestling, and it also opens up another avenue because the wrestling angle we're going to get into is actually video games, because it was announced today that CM Punk will be the showcase athlete for the WWE 2K26 showcase mode. So they've done this before, where at times going through the years of WrestleMania, at times going through certain eras of WWE, Attitude Era, things of that nature. Certain athletes, like last year it was John Cena. This year, you'll be celebrating the life and career of CM Punk, and we'll talk about what that entails, what we want to see from this showcase mode. So we got a lot to get to, man. This is going to be a fun one. Again, it's your boy EJ Stewart rocking with you. New Generation Media. Again, 40 days, 40 nights. You want to catch this show, make sure you subscribe to the channel. New Generation Media on YouTube, where you'll find us. Make sure you also follow me on X, EJ_Stewart, and Instagram, ActionEJ. I am streaming live on YouTube, X, and IG Live currently. So shout out to the folks checking me out on all those different platforms. YouTube, New Generation Media, Instagram, ActionEJ, X, EJ_Stewart. Obviously, we get the scroll on down the bottom if you're watching on YouTube or you're watching on X, where you can follow us on social media as well. But let's get the ball rolling. Let's talk about these Philadelphia Eagles. Philadelphia Eagles coming off of what was a disappointing end to their season.
Go Birds!
There wasn't a lot of go Birds after what happened to them. They get downside of the first round, the wild card round of the playoffs, by a injury-riddled 49ers team that had injuries throughout the regular season, then lost their star tight end, George Kittle, in this game to a torn Achilles. Eagles not able to take advantage in any way, and they get sent home. So now the question becomes, what comes next for Howie Roseman and the Eagles? The Eagles are notorious for being a very aggressive team when it comes to trade market, aggressive when it comes to acquiring guys, aggressive in terms of also perhaps letting guys go. And a lot of attention is centered around A.J. Brown, who has been a disgruntled wide receiver. I know, receivers don't like to be called disgruntled, even if they are. And I know sometimes it could feel a little bit like a stereotype to say that, but that, I think, is an accurate way to describe A.J. Brown. He has complained about not getting enough touches. He's complained about how the Philly offense is operated. He has complained and complained and complained. And to do the complaining he did and then perform the way he performed in the playoffs, where he no-shows, and in some of the biggest spots in the game, he has key drops, leaves a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. A lot of people in Philadelphia already were kind of wondering if his time was up. Now a lot of people are really kind of maybe clamoring for him to see a new destination this offseason, which leads to questions for Howie Roseman and what's going to happen with A.J. Brown. They talked about this on the trade deadline. Howie Roseman downplayed the possibility of A.J. Brown getting traded then. He was asked about it again today. And once again, he downplays the possibility of trading A.J. Brown. Let's hear from the Eagles general manager.
Yeah, we talked about this, I think, at the trade deadline last time I talked. It is hard to find great players in the NFL, and A.J. is a great player. I think from my perspective, that's what we're going out and looking for when we go out here in free agency in the draft, is trying to find great players who love football, and he's that guy. So I think that would be my answer.
I don't believe for 1 second they're not trading A.J. Brown. Not for 1 second do I believe that A.J. Brown is going to show up at the NovaCare Center facility and be, through the OTAs, through the training camp, and in week 1, lining up at the link, playing wide receiver for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think his days are numbered. I don't think he wants to be there. I think the way he played during that playoff and the decision to also just split as soon as the game was over. He didn't answer questions from the press. And I'm not trying to be the sanctimonious nature of answering questions from the press. It's not even about that. In places like Philadelphia, where they hold their athletes as accountable as probably any other city, and particularly Eagles players, they damn sure wanted to hear what A.J. Brown had to say after that game, considering all the talk he has spewed regarding his role in the offense and how much he needed more touches, and then for him to no-show in the game. They definitely cared about what A.J. Brown had to say. So for him to just pack his bags and get out of there without speaking to anybody, that did not play well and is not going to play well in Philadelphia. So the idea that A.J. Brown is going to be back next year is, I think, implausible. And it doesn't, I don't think it really makes much sense. He doesn't have a good relationship, it appears, with the quarterback. You have to have that kumbaya session with him and Saquon Barkley in hopes of mending fences with Jalen Hurts. This is 2 years in a row where we've been having these issues with him and Jalen Hurts. We saw the blow up on the sidelines with him and Nick Sirianni during that game. Another thing that didn't give A.J. Brown necessarily a good look, obviously, was Sirianni, who was the aggressor in that, but nonetheless, a bad look to see the coach and the GM and the star wide receiver going after it in a playoff game. There's no reason for him to want to be there at this point. I think he's a guy that has gotten what he wanted out of Philadelphia. He got paid. He got a championship. And I think at this point, some of those things we talk about when it comes to being selfless and being worried about team success over your success, he's past that at this point in his career. And I'm not even, to me, casting any judgment on him for having that feeling, because he did win the championship and he has had all the accolades you would want. So, yeah, at this point in his career, he's not looking at the Eagles and saying, I don't care how well I play as long as we win. He wants to produce. He wants to perform. He wants to put up big numbers. He won a championship. He sacrificed, and now he's in a position where I think he looks at it and says, this isn't the place for me. And I think it's not a surprise to me that he played so poorly, to be honest, because this has just been a season of letdowns for the Eagles offense. I remember that terrible Monday Night Football game where Hurst threw all those interceptions, but A.J. Brown also had a key drop in that game. And he was one of the reasons why Jalen Hurts struggled so much in that game. So it's just a bad match. So I think this is Howie Roseman playing it smart here. It doesn't make sense for Roseman coming out of the first press conference after that performance from Brown and the Eagles and all the drama and all the tension that has happened in Philadelphia regarding Brown's status on the team. It would have been silly to go up there and be like, yeah, we're going to consider all options about A.J. Brown. And to basically put up a for sale sign on your yard talking about, yep, we're getting rid of A.J. Brown, give us your offers. That's not a good way to do business, because at that point now other teams know you've put out there that A.J. Brown is not going to be there anymore. So they're going to try to lowball you. They're going to give you their crappy offers. They're not going to give you the king's ransom kind of deals that you'd be expecting. And that's not in the best interest of the Eagles. Not in the best interest of Howie Roseman. So, no, you play it smart. He knows he's got to trade A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown knows that he needs to be traded. Howie Roseman's not a dummy to come into next offseason with all this tension and it's like, we're going to try to run this back one more time. The ship has sailed. But I think what he does know is, if I want to get the best deal possible, yes, I may have to go through some, maybe, unfortunate necessary pain to get to the point of when I finally do trade him, because maybe I do need him around during minicamp. Maybe I do need him around during OTAs. And I don't think this is going to go, all the way to training camp. I don't think this is going to be a Micah Parsons situation. But if it does get to a situation where maybe I got to keep him all the way to training camp, that's a possibility. It also may be a situation where it's like, hey, I want to play this up all the way up into the NFL draft so that I can get people knowing where the draft board is going to be, knowing the guys we want to target. And then once teams at that point start to get desperate about understanding what they want to do to improve their team, now that the draft board is starting to get set, then I can strike. Again, you can't come in right after the first your first loss coming out of the playoffs, first press conference, and say, yep, we're getting rid of A.J. Brown. Now teams come in and give you crappy offers. No, you play this smart and make a team try to, quote-unquote, change your mind to then trade A.J. Brown. And he'll do what every GM does. Then he'll go in the press conference and say, hey, listen, A.J. Brown's a great player. We got an offer that we just could not refuse, and we wish him all the best. This happens all the time in the NFL. It happens in other sports as well. I have no doubt that this is also what's going to happen with the Philadelphia Eagles and A.J. Brown. So I don't think he'll be back there very much longer. I expect A.J. Brown to be traded. And when I think about the price for A.J. Brown, remember, they gave up a first-round pick to the Tennessee Titans for A.J. Brown. That ended up not being really much of a hurt to the Eagles, because the Titans picked Treylon Burks, and that guy turned into a bust. So they didn't lose out on some megastar because they traded that pick. That ended up being a wonderful trade. Can the Eagles get a first for A.J. Brown given the situation he's been in? Again, he's been not necessarily the greatest character guy. He hasn't been a raging lunatic or anything like that. But again, he's caused some issues. He's caused some trouble. He's made comments. The Instagram stuff, the Twitter stuff, the stuff that is created distractions. At this point in his career, is A.J. Brown worth a first-round pick again? I think it's TBD, to be honest. Because you're looking at a receiver, he's 28 years old. He'll be 29 this upcoming year. That tells me he's probably got 2-ish to 3 years of probably prime production. And then you're probably going to see him decline. He's a guy who definitely is about his speed and his physicality and his strength. So as you get older, injuries tend to mount up. Physical fitness tends to slow down a little bit. Speed slows down a little bit. This is not a guy who is, kind of winning on the margins. This is a guy who wins because he's physically more gifted than his opponent. So as those physical gifts start to fall off a little bit, his game, I think, will fall off a little bit. So this is not someone I think is going to be at age 34, putting up Jerry Rice numbers. I don't see that A.J. Brown to be that kind of player. So, at age 28, going to be 29. He's coming off for a 1,000-yard season in 15 games. Good, but his first 2 years in Philly, where you're talking about him putting up numbers where he's averaging 1,400 yards, almost 1,500 yards a season, that A.J. Brown is in an elite class. That A.J. Brown is a superstar. And that's the reason why A.J. Brown wants out. Because he knows as well, if he's going to get another big contract, what teams are going to point to is his production. And if they're going to point to the production and say, well, you were averaging just 1,000 yards a season. I say just 1,000 yards. Some guys, that'd be career years for them. For A.J. Brown, those are down years. But if you're only averaging 1,000 yards a season, I don't know if you're commanding some massive, massive payday. And on the flip side, I think for the Eagles, in terms of trade capital, I don't know if a guy who's struggling to get that 1,000 yards every year and is at age 29 going into next year, if he's worth a first-round pick, especially given all the headaches he is now proven he is willing to cause. So I'm actually very fascinated to see where he may go in terms of teams that may be interested in him. The team I'm always thinking about, every time a receiver comes available, though I don't think that they'd want to give this quarterback more headaches because he just got rid of his last headache, is I do always think about the Buffalo Bills. And I do wonder, anytime a receiver comes available, and knowing Josh Allen to be obviously the superstar that he is, the reigning MVP, but when I do watch the Bills, who just lost Gabe Davis to an I think it was an ACL injury, ACL injury over the playoffs, and I look at their team and I think, what is their weakness? What is going to be the thing that may keep them from winning a championship? They clearly don't have a number one receiver. It's essentially Dalton. What's the name? Dalton Kincaid, who's essentially a tight end, he's their pseudo number one receiver. But their receivers, they make plays when they have to. They make plays in spurts, but they're not the real deal. And I don't think that when they face some of these elite teams, I'm actually very curious how they play against the Denver Broncos, who have elite cornerback play. If they have to see the Houston Texans, how do those receivers perform? They did not perform well earlier in the season when the Texans beat them up and beat them this year, and they've beaten them 2 years in a row. I think some of it has been because they don't have that guy. So if the Bills fall short again, do they take the risk to upset the apple cart? What has been, I think, a very, outside of Keon Coleman nonsense this year, a very copacetic locker room since they jettisoned Stephon Diggs out of there. Everybody's been getting along, no real major complaints. They were able to discipline Keon Coleman kind of almost like anonymously. It didn't become the huge story that maybe it would have become for a locker room that wasn't so well put together. Keon Coleman took his punishment like a man. There wasn't much more crowing beyond that, and we kind of all just moved on in our lives. And now he's kind of a backup, but kind of still plays. He's still kind of involved with the team, and that's kind of just it. But if you're the Bills, do you make that push? Do you say, you know what, if we fall short again, we got to find a way to get number one guy? Because I think of the receivers that will be available, A.J. Brown, I anticipate will be near the top of the list in terms of how talented guys will be and the best players they could possibly get. So I'm definitely looking at the Buffalo Bills as a team that certainly could get in the mix for A.J. Brown. I think another team that I would consider, another team that I think of, again, receivers being available and helping out their quarterback, and a team that definitely wants a definitely kind of a jolt. I also wonder about the Baltimore Ravens, because again, when I think about this, it takes me to NFC to AFC teams. I don't think the Eagles, though. Eagles are shown not to really give a damn when it comes to stuff like this. They traded Donovan McNabb within the division, famously, obviously. So, but I think they'll probably want to trade him to the AFC. I don't think they want to have to deal with the headache that is A.J. Brown as an opponent. They've already dealt with him as a headache as a player. I don't think they want to double down on that and say they also were going to keep him around in the division or keep him around in the conference. So I didn't think about the Baltimore Ravens, who, I feel like they've been kind of doing this thing with Zay Flowers, who to be fair, came up and made some big plays in that game that they ended up losing. But to me, it's always a roller coaster. It's a roller coaster when he's on the field, because you don't know when the guy's going to fumble or make a dumb mistake that's going to cost him. He also may make game-changing plays that will win games for you. And then it's a roller coaster with him off the field. So him being your number one receiver might not be the most reliable way to move forward. Do the Ravens maybe consider? They're a team that obviously is out of the playoffs, so they can consider all options. I think if the Bills win a championship, I don't know if they're going after A.J. Brown. But the Ravens already fell short. They already are looking at how we improve our team. I wonder if they're a squad that looks at it and says, okay, let's go and let's take a risk and see if we can get A.J. Brown. He's going to be a guy that's going to be warranted. I think somebody will want him. But again, the capital, I don't think it's a first-round pick. I would assume it's probably a second and some plus, maybe a second and a fifth, a second and a fourth, something along those lines. I think A.J., considering some of the declining production we've seen in the last 2 years, I doubt that he gets first-round pick action. But it will be something to follow this offseason. Do I buy that A.J. Brown is going to be back with the Eagles? And that's Harry Roseman said. He's a great player, so therefore, it's hard to find great players. He's going to try to find another great player not named A.J. Brown. I totally agree. A.J. Brown is a great player, and I agree that they are hard to find. But what's more valuable are great players who aren't the headaches that he's become. And he has become a headache. There's no question about that. So we'll see what happens with A.J. Brown. Let's get to what's going on in the playoffs. This was also pretty big news today, and news that kind of came literally out of nowhere. So obviously you got the divisional round games getting ready to get set off. You got the Seahawks facing the Niners in a rematch of a game they played just a couple weeks ago, which was for first place in the NFC. The Seahawks went on the road. They beat the Niners, so then they got the opportunity to have home field advantage. That's why this game will be played in Seattle. This is going to be a 8 p.m. start Eastern time on Fox. And it turns out Sam Darnold's hurt. Sam Darnold's hurt, and it seems to have come out of nowhere. But Sam Darnold got injured in practice, apparently. He was working out, and something happened with his oblique. Didn't feel right. And now he showed up on the injury report. For those that are panicking, he did speak to the news media today. He said that, yeah, he felt something in his oblique, did not want to push it, so pulled himself out of practice. He got the treatment that he feels is necessary, and he expects, no doubt, to be ready to play on Saturday. So, good news that he'll be able to play. You definitely want to hear that. But bad news that he got injured so close to this game. It's Thursday, and they play on Saturday, and he's got an oblique. Obliques can be very painful. They can be very difficult for quarterbacks, especially, who require so much torque for their passes. And this is terrible luck for Sam Darnold, who sometimes feels like, one of the more unlucky guys in the NFL. His career started with the New York Jets. You could say his career started unlucky. But then, of course, the Mono situation and the Carolina situation, and then going to Minnesota and having all that success, but then blowing the last 2 games, but then blew his opportunity at a super mega payday. He got paid fine, but did not get the super contract that we thought was coming to him, given he had a borderline MVP caliber year with the Minnesota Vikings. And this year, things are going great. He's an MVP candidate yet again. Team still wins, but in the second half of the season, he starts to have injury, interception problems, turnover problems. And we come into this postseason with us, I think, liking the Seahawks as a team, but not sure about him. And then now he has an opportunity to, with the number 1 seed locked up, he's got a limping San Francisco 49ers team coming to his house at the link, and it's going to be an absolute frenzy with the 12th man. And I know it's going to be striking, because I don't know if you guys remember, there was a Thursday night game, I want to say it was 2 years ago. I remember we talked about it on Maggie and Pro Off. It was a Thursday night game where the Niners, it had to be 2 years ago, because they played this year. It was like the first game of the season. 2 years ago, there was a Thursday night game. The Niners came to Seattle, and the fans seemed to have gotten so disinterested and so disillusioned by the direction of the team, which is why Pete Carroll had to go. To watch that stadium be essentially a 50-50 Niner stadium was stunning, considering what that rivalry was during the Legion of Boom era, considering how loyal we consider the Seahawks fan base to be. I do know Thursday night games are tough to get to for fans, especially, kids and work and all the nine. I totally understand that. But it was still a striking thing to watch a Seahawks game on national television against a rival and see that much red and gold in the stands. And to hear the cheering for the Niners. That is not going to be the case on Saturday. This is going to be, I think, one of the better atmospheres. I think Denver's also going to be an awesome atmosphere over the weekend. But it's a game that's also on Saturday, by the way. But this is going to be awesome. And Sam Darnold's got everybody behind him. Great running game. Great defense. Arguably the best receiver in the NFL. Things now seem to be setting up for him. And then this happens. He's at a practice, and I don't know if he was stretching or if he doing something, but he pulls an oblique. And to the point where they had to put him on the injury report. They had to list him as questionable. That shows you just how serious this was. He's downplaying it now, but I don't think this is some small thing. I think he's going to be playing injured. So it's unfortunate, because I don't think anybody's going to give him any excuses. There's absolutely no way people are going to look at what is going on with him and his career. If he goes out there and has the same old Sam Darnold type of performance where he throws 2 picks, he's fumbling the ball, and the Seahawks lose 16-13 to a limping 49ers team, it is going to be the same conversation about Sam Darnold that we've been having for his entire career. Nothing's going to change. And I think a lot of those fans also will feel like, here we go again. We signed him hoping he could be our guy, and he got us to the playoffs. He got us the number 1 seed, but then playoffs happened, and then here we are. start to wonder if he kind of becomes the new age Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins was that guy for a long time. Guy could put up big numbers, but when it came down to playoff, winning time type stuff, you just deep down knew he wasn't the guy. And you deep down knew he wasn't going to get it done. And he never got it done. And Sam Darnold, the only way he could ever shake that is to come up big in these moments. And it seemed like things were setting up well for him. I think that we'll see how it happens. I'm still picking the Seahawks, not knowing how hurt or not hurt Sam Darnold is. I just think the Niners at this point are too banged up for me to think that they can function as an offense against this hellacious Seahawks defense. So I'm picking the Seahawks to win this game because I just don't trust the Niners at this point without Kittle. And they're not going to have Fred Warner, we learned as well. Fred Warner's been trying to work his way back from a fractured ankle that he injured all the way back in October. There's been rumors that he could come back and play this game. Kyle Shanahan ruled that out earlier today. He's not going to be activated off IR, so no Fred Warner in this game. So I don't think the Niners have enough to win. But now it feels like maybe this is the little crack that they needed to find an opportunity to somehow once again pull off a major upset and advance once again into the playoffs. Because things, again, for the Seahawks, I feel like we're setting up right. Niners limping, and I look over at the other side of that conference, and I see a Bears team that seems to do all the things wrong in terms of how to start games and will gladly give you big leads. Now, they are great at finishing games, but you would think, okay, Bears, they may give us a big cushion if we could just hold on to a lead against them, which is easier said than done. That seems like a team that's a good matchup. Their offense can be up and down. When you're playing a team like the Seahawks, efficiency, I think, is most important. The Bears are not an efficient offense at all in terms of their passing game. So that feels like a good matchup. You look at the Rams, a team that seems to be kind of playing down to competition and seems not to be really living up to their own potential after what they did against Seattle just a couple weeks ago as well on Thursday Night Football. So, and you got them at home. So I think it feels like things were setting up well for the Seahawks. If they lose this game and Sam Darnold's the reason, you're going to have the same old Sam Darnold conversations we've been having this whole time. So it's going to be something to follow very closely in terms of how he's moving, how he's looking. And the one, I think, caveat and the one silver lining, I think, for the Seahawks in this game, and Oblique is one of those injuries where, yes, getting hit hurts you, but I think it's more about movement than anything else. But he is playing against a defense that is terrible at getting after the passer. You know, they lost Nick Bosa, they lost Michael Williams. The Niners essentially have been Bryce Huff in a prayer when it comes to the pass rush, or doing a lot more blitzing than they prefer to do. Robert Saleh is not someone who's a heavy blitz guy. He likes to get home with 4 and play coverage in the back end. They don't get after the passer. They don't rush the passer. So they've had no choice but to adjust some of their defensive schemes. And Saleh's done a phenomenal job, but they're still one of the lower teams in the NFL when it comes to pressure rate. Sam Darnold, I wouldn't expect to be under siege. I wouldn't expect to see him under a lot of pressure. So if you're worried about him taking contact, taking hits, I think that's probably a silver lining with this team. I don't think you'll see him have to deal with too much of that. There was some other NFL news that we got today as well. I just want to mention briefly. And again, make sure you follow me on X, EJ_Stewart. We're streaming live on X. Shout out to the folks watching us on X. Shout out to the folks watching us on YouTube, New Generation Media. Shout out to the folks watching us on Instagram, Action EJ. Nico Collins also did not practice today. And by all accounts, with him being in concussion protocol, he is not likely to play on Sunday when they take on the Patriots. That, not a surprise to me. I think when you watched Nico Collins take that injury, that concussion, it was a nasty fall. His recovery from it didn't look good on the field. Wobbly, not knowing where he's going. He's getting carted to the locker room. He can't even make his way to the locker room. It was an ugly look. So I didn't expect to see Nico Collins coming back, and he will not be back, which is terribly unfortunate for the Texans. Now, I think the Texans look at that and say, well, just kind of like what I tweeted when watching them play against the Steelers and watching C.J. Stroud just throw up all over himself for 3 quarters. It seemed like the Texas defense was the Thanos post-credit scene from Avengers. I believe this was Age of Ultron, where he just says, fine, I'll do it myself, and grabs the Infinity Gauntlet. That felt like the Texans defense, that they watched their quarterback be incapable of winning the game. And they said, all right, we'll just win the game ourselves. Let's just score 2 touchdowns. Let's just bludgeon Aaron Rodgers even more than we have. And let's go and win this game on our own. So the Texans defense is so dominant. They may be able to still beat the Patriots on their own. They're that good. The Patriots, I think, cause more problems offensively than the Steelers do. But Drake May, that first playoff game looked a little shaky. He's obviously an MVP candidate. He very well could be the MVP this year. But his first go around in the playoffs and his first game, not the most even performance at all. So I think the Texans are going to have opportunities to get turnovers. I think the Texans are going to have opportunities to make plays. I feel like that's going to be a low-scoring game. I said it on Monday, or I guess Tuesday rather, when after the Monday Night Football game. I felt like Patriots felt like a first team to 16 or 17 points wins kind of game. And now with Nico Collins out, the Texans offense, that takes a major blow. He's a big part of everything they do with their passing game. A passing game that was completely unreliable with C.J. Stroud on Monday night. And now they're facing an even tougher defense in the Patriots this week. I expect that to once again be a problem. We'll see what they end up doing, but no Nico Collins likely for this week. He, in concussion protocol, was not able to practice here today as we sit here on Thursday doing this live stream / podcast. Last bit of NFL news before we move on to some other stuff here. Again, awesome, fun show so far. Patrick Mahomes, back in the news. Haven't heard from Mahomes in a minute, but he is indeed back, and he's talking about a week 1 return from his ACL injury. So Mahomes, he got injured late in the season, obviously putting the season to bed for Patrick Mahomes, obviously with a torn ACL and a torn LCL, by the way. But questions surrounded, given how late the injury was, would he be able to come back and play next season at all, let alone play early in the season? Here's Patrick Mahomes talking about his hopes for being ready for opening week.
It's been going great. I mean, obviously, I think the long term. I want to be ready for week 1. Doctor said that I could be, but I can't predict what's going to happen throughout the process. But that's my goal, and so I'll try to prepare myself to be ready to play in that week 1 and have no restrictions. You want to be out there healthy and giving us the best chance to win. And so, obviously, I'll hopefully be able to do some stuff in OTAs and then get to training camp and hopefully be able to do a lot there. So I'm excited for the process. It's a long process, but I'm excited for it.
All right, so let's do EJ math here. So he got injured in December, had surgery in December. So you're talking about in terms of how many months it would be for him to be ready for week 1. You're talking about January, February, March, April, May, June. July is training camp, like late July training camp. So now you're talking about 7 months he'd probably have to at least begin stuff in training camp. August, 8 months preseason, he's got to at least now be taking probably full team reps and all ready to go. So really you're talking about an 8-month recovery. 9 months, September would be a 9-month recovery from the actually did play in the NFL game. But 7 to 8 months would be the recovery for him to get back out there and be doing all that he needs to be ready for week 1. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good idea because I look at where the Chiefs are, and I wonder about the future of Rashee Rice, given some of the allegations that are out about him and just who he is it seems like a person at this point, and whether or not he's going to be on the team. We're going to talk about what's going to happen with their coaching staff. I kind of wonder if this would be better suited as being a gap year for the Chiefs. Or at the very least, not being so concerned about having the best record possible so that Patrick Mahomes starts week 1. Like, it's not to say that the Chiefs still can't get to the playoffs or have a decent season with some kind of, it's not going to be Gardner Minshew because he tore his ACL, but some gap quarterback playing for 4 or 5 games, 6 games, letting Patrick Mahomes get fully ready instead of giving him 7 months, maybe give him 10 months, and now he's a different quarterback. So I want to play this sound as well because he was asked a very good question in this press conference about, how do you balance pushing it to get ready for week 1 and knowing how important that is, while also understanding the long-term ramifications of your career and how serious this injury is.
That's something that I have to think of. I think the coaches and the organization all has to think of. But at the same time, that's why they give me limits to where I can push it. It's like Dr. Cooper did. described that to me. He said, I'll give you the limits of where you can push it to, and then it's up to you how far you want to push it to that limit. And knowing me, I'm going to push it to the exact limit every single day. And so there's places you can't go yet, which I want to, but I can't go yet. But at the same time, they're doing it for a reason.
So Patrick Mahomes is, I think, I know the Chiefs are polarizing. They've not necessarily been my cup of tea all the time, but Patrick Mahomes is a gamer. No question about that. I think we all know he's a gamer. We all know how tough he is. We've seen him getting hurt in the playoffs, playing on sprained ankles and going out there and running for 20 yards. The guy is a tough guy. And I think anybody would assume that he's going to try to push this rehab as aggressively as possible to get him back on the field as early as possible. So it's interesting to hear for him to say, yeah, you know what, I'm pushing for those benchmarks they're giving me. And he says, by the way, he's cleared every benchmark for the early recovery so far. I would, as someone who also dealt with a serious knee injury, I am not a professional athlete, let me be very clear. But as someone who dealt with a serious injury to their knee as well, different kind of knee injury, I feel like in some ways the earlier benchmarks are the easier benchmarks to reach. It's kind of later in the rehab when you start to really have to start pushing yourself to run, cut, those kind of things. Those are the harder benchmarks. Let's see if you can move your leg, 45 degrees. At the time, feels impossible. It feels very hard. But in hindsight, you're like, that actually was the easy part of this recovery. It's very good that he's getting through that, it seems like. But a month away, that's probably all you're talking about, is him being able to move his knee, maybe do on some, maybe, I don't know about walking, but maybe some slow walking maybe, but not too much. So he's at the very beginning of this. So easy to early hit these benchmarks to see where he goes as it gets stronger. But I look at this and I think this actually could be a pseudo golden opportunity for the Chiefs to take a gap year. Because let's say you go and you get, I don't think it's going to be Mac Jones, because he's probably he may be the quarterback for the Jets, Jesus, because I don't think he's going with them. But I think he'll probably get a starting job somewhere. But if you go and it's Tua Tagovailoa, or it's someone of that ilk who has probably run their course as a starting quarterback potentially and only has backup options and is looking to be a mentor, maybe a mentee to someone who is more seasoned, it might make sense to, again, say, okay, we're going to start these first 4 or 5 games with this guy. We're going to wait for Patrick Mahomes to get healthy. And whatever the record is, the record is. And given who the Chiefs are, and Andy Reid's a great coach, Andy Reid's also very good with backup quarterbacks. The Chiefs, in theory, could be 4-2 with a backup quarterback. They could be 3-3 with a backup quarterback, where the season is very much still in the air, and then Patrick Mahomes comes in more ready to go, and he's not rushing in, or he's not coming in playing compromise on a bad knee. Like, that is very possible. And if that's the case, the Chiefs are very much still as dangerous as they always would be going through the rest of the way, and you wouldn't want to see them in the playoffs most likely as Patrick Mahomes continues to get more healthy. If you decide, well, no, we're going to, let's continue this. If the gap quarterback guy comes in there, we're going to start, again, Tua, some other guy, and they're 1-5. All right, they're 1-5. And they're probably not going to make the playoffs, and that's fine, because now they have an opportunity to use a higher draft pick for a team that typically, they'll have a higher draft pick this year. They're a team that typically drafts near the top, or the bottom rather, the end of the draft. They're drafting 31, 32, and they've done an awesome job getting players in those spots to be able to be contributors. But that's not where you want to be every year. Well, unless you're winning. You do want to be there every year if you win a championship like the Chiefs are. But if you're not that good, or you're not in a position to really help your team at the end of the way, if you could get a high-end draft pick, that's also not the worst thing in the world either. So to me, if you're the Chiefs and you have an opportunity to say, okay, the season didn't go quite as well, but we got Patrick Mahomes as healthy as possible. By the end of the year, he's playing much better. Okay, maybe we just missed the playoffs, but instead of us rushing back, hoping he could play in a certain way and risking his situation, we're perfectly fine drafting at pick number 18. And now that gives us an opportunity to get a better high-end player, and that we can add to this team, because this team definitely is going to have to start cycling out some of these old guys that are on the squad. They're a little long in the tooth in multiple spots. We already know Travis Kelce, his career may be over. They're going to have to infuse some young talent onto this team. And, again, a great opportunity to do that potentially could be through the draft. So I don't think that it's a tragedy if Patrick Mahomes is not ready for week 1. I know he's gearing for that to be the case. I just don't know what the risk is. I don't know what the purpose is. I don't know what the impetus is for him to have to play for week 1. There was one more thing he said in this press conference that I thought was noteworthy as well, because we are in the midst of the coaching cycle season. We already got one hire that is set to be made official any minute now, if it hasn't been already, with John Harbaugh being hired by the New York Giants. Matt Nagy, who is the offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, is someone who is also getting NFL head coaching interviews. So the question becomes, the Chiefs could also, beyond all the changes that they're already undergoing, could also be looking for an offensive coordinator. So what does that future potentially look like under the guise of Patrick Mahomes, or under the eyes of Patrick Mahomes? Here's what he had to say.
Coach Reed, if Coach Nagy is able to get another job, a head coaching job, that he'll have a good plan of who he wants to bring in. But for me, I just want someone that loves football, that cares about football, that wants to give everything they can to win, to hold people accountable, and then to bring new ideas every single day. I think that's something that we have to continue to do if you want to continue to be great in this league.
This tells me that Matt Nagy don't got that much impact on this team. There's always been the long conversation about, especially when it was honestly with Eric Bieniemy, it was very charged with race, because we talked about Eric Bieniemy's lack of opportunities to get an NFL head coaching job, and whether or not that was because he was a black coach. And a lot of conversations like, well, how much responsibility does he have with the offense? Because the Chiefs have all the success. Typically, when a coach has that much success with an offense, someone's going to give him an opportunity, but Eric Bieniemy never got one for a head coaching job. So the question became, why is he getting a job? Is he actually calling the plays? Is it just Andy Reid? And I don't think we ever got a firm answer. It seemed like maybe at one point it was Reid, then it became Bieniemy, but who actually knows? Similar deal with Matt Nagy, where, again, Matt Nagy's the offensive coordinator. It appears he calls plays, but again, it's Andy Reid's offense. How much imprint does Andy Reid have in the success of the Chiefs? And I'll be honest, and I've said this for a while now, Matt Nagy's getting all these looks and getting all this attention for potentially being an NFL head coach. He was looked at by the Jets and multiple teams last year as well. I don't understand why. Forget about even Chicago. We could litigate whether that was more of his fault or Mitchell Trubisky just being a buster. Maybe a little bit of both. But pointing to the success of the Kansas City Chiefs as a reason for Matt Nagy to be held to a certain status is peculiar to me, because the Chiefs' offense has taken steps back and gotten worse every year Matt Nagy's been there. When Eric Bieniemy was running that offense, they were the scariest offense in the NFL, one of the scarier offenses in NFL history. He leaves because he's not getting opportunities, so he's had to go to Washington, and his career goes in a whole different way that I'm sure he wishes it did not go. But he goes on to greener pastures, or not so greener pastures. And Matt Nagy becomes the offensive coordinator. He's in the Eric Bieniemy role. And what have we talked about with the Kansas City Chiefs? It's been their inability to get back to them being that explosive team that could strike at any moment, that hits these big plays. Some of it has been, well, is it the NFL catching up to the Kansas City Chiefs and catching up to what they were doing, and knowing that the only way to beat them is essentially live with them hitting you with 1,000 paper cuts as opposed to letting them just run up and down the field on you for easy touchdowns? So they're making the Chiefs be patient, and it's just an adjustment, and it just so happens to coincide with Matt Nagy showing up. Or if Matt Nagy really is calling the plays and he really is a big factor in what's going on, is it him? Is it his offense? Is it his abilities keeping the Chiefs and holding them back? I think it's a fair question. And I think it's fascinating that when Patrick Mahomes is asked about what it looks like if Matt Nagy's gone, he's like, I think Reid will hire a good guy. And then when it's like what he's looking for, he's like, I just want somebody who loves football. He don't even need somebody that's like, I want to run a certain system. I want someone who's gonna get a certain, like, just get some guy to give him a headset and we line up on the ball. Like, it strikes me that either that role as the OC of the Chiefs isn't as important as we think, or he just isn't all that concerned about Matt Nagy being gone and anybody can fill that role. Either way, I don't think it's the greatest look for Matt Nagy when it comes to what may be his future as an NFL head coach, which he's probably going to get another opportunity because he's had enough success with the Chiefs that somebody should give him a chance probably. But I've always not been that high on him. I wasn't that high on him coming out of Chicago. And the fact that Mahomes is like, we'll be fine essentially if this guy's gone. When there's a great chance he's back, by the way. There are a lot of jobs that are open. It is not a foregone conclusion that Matt Nagy's getting one of them. So he very well could be back. But Patrick Mahomes already going out there saying, oh, if he's gone, then, he's gone and we'll figure it out. Was telling to me. Again, this is 40 Days, 40 Nights with your boy EJ here, streaming live on IG Live, Action EJ, on X, EJ_Stewart, and on Instagram, Action EJ. I know people have been watching on all platforms. I want to thank you guys so much again for locking in. I want to get to the chat. And again, you can comment in the comment section what we're talking about. We're talking about A.J. Brown, Patrick Mahomes, the NFL playoffs, some updates regarding some injuries with Sam Darnold, who has an oblique but is expected to play. Fred Warner, who is coming from a fractured ankle, who was hoping to play but is not going to play. And then Nico Collins missing practice with a concussion, most likely putting him out for this Sunday's AFC divisional round matchup with the Patriots on the road. I'm going to give a shout out to my guy, Rob DeRay, who's become a little bit of a character on this show. You know, he has not been on the show yet. I'm sure we'll get Rob DeRay on soon. He's watching the stream. Shout out to my guy, Rob. He says, EJ, come on. AJ Brown will net a third, and they will probably have to send a fifth back in the deal at this point in terms of how low AJ Brown's his trade value is at this point. It's possible. Certainly possible. I mean, here's what I'll say. I think when it comes to receivers, from what I see, it still feels like there are a couple of teams that when a good guy is available and there's desperation, they will make the steps necessary to get that guy. I feel like there was a time where I felt like it benefited teams it benefited sellers, or buyers when it came to receivers. I don't feel like that's what it is now. I don't feel that's the way it is when it comes to contracts. I don't feel that like that's the way when it comes to trade value. Guys are going, again, elite guys going for first round picks. I think even second tier guys going for second round picks and things of that nature. I kind of would expect, again, for Brown to fall in the line of, again, being that second round type guy. I don't think he's a first round pick, but I still think somebody's going to be desperate enough to say we need a receiver. And all you need is a couple of teams to have a market. And then now you got a bidding war. And now what maybe starts as a third round pick and maybe Eagles having to give stuff to get him out of there now becomes, all right, well, now we got a little bidding war. Who really wants A.J. Brown that badly? So I totally get the idea that Brown, maybe because of how he's played and, again, the malcontent aspect to his status, I still think, given he's a champion, given he still can be productive, I think he gets at least a second. Again, there's no chance I think he gets a first at this point, which, again, is why I think Howie Roseman's moving how he's moving. Like, he knows that the market, maybe today is a third, right? Maybe it is a third and a fifth. So he's like, hey, A.J. Brown's a great player. It's hard to find guys like this. So he knows, let me be smart, and let's see how this thing plays out for the weeks and months leading up to the draft. And then let's get to the draft time, and then let's see how desperate teams may be. I'm looking at the teams. I'm just trying to look at these AFC teams. Like I said, I mentioned Buffalo. They're a team that I think could make sense. Could Miami make sense? You know, they're going to have a new quarterback for sure. It's not expected Tua Tagovailoa is going to be back. Could Miami make sense as a possibility for them, looking at a QB, and then maybe want to pair him with a top receiver? I don't think the Jets are going to be in front of A.J. Brown. I mentioned the Ravens as a possibility. Do the Browns become interested in someone like A.J. Brown? Which would be kind of funny, Browns getting A.J. Brown. But do the Browns, who definitely also need help on the outside, need help with their overall offense, are they the kind of team that would take a risk? They also have some additional draft capital, so they might be willing to sell in that regard. I think it would be foolish to sell for an older player for a team that I think is still a couple years away. But they did also just pay Myles Garrett, the single season sack leader. So I don't know how much longer they expected him to play games and play along with them, being one of the worst teams in the league. And the AFC South, again, Tennessee is not going to be a team, obviously. So I don't think any of these teams in the AFC South really make sense. And in the AFC West, I don't really see Broncos. I don't see it. I don't see it with the Chiefs. Raiders will always do something weird, so I think they will probably be a team I would definitely consider. Tom Brady running the show, though. I don't know. Tom Brady doesn't seem like A.J. Brown got to me, so that would surprise me. Chargers are a little intriguing. He doesn't necessarily seem like a Jim Harbaugh guy, but Jim Harbaugh is kind of crazy, and Jim Harbaugh is not afraid of risk. And the Chargers definitely do need a number one receiver. Now, they played A.J. Brown, and they kind of embarrassed him on Monday Night Football earlier this year. One of the I feel like it wasn't like the origin story, but kind of like one of the main turning points in the A.J. Brown story of this season was his terrible performance on Monday Night Football, where he complained all these weeks about not getting the ball. He started getting the ball, and they started losing. And then in this game, he was getting the ball, and he kept dropping the ball. He cost Jalen Hurts a pick because of how bad he was dropping the ball. So, did the Chargers, in terms of doing almost a self-scout because he was there, are they going to be like, oh, we're willing to give up a lot to get him? I don't know. So, we'll see. I'm very curious about what ends up happening. I tend to be a little more on the aggressive side when it comes to what guys we offer for. Rob making the case that he thinks maybe it'll be for a lot less. I'm fascinated to see what ends up happening with A.J. Brown and what happens with him moving forward. Let's shift gears here now. Let's get to some NBA talk before we get out of here. Again, it's been a fun show so far. E.J. Stewart, 40 days, 40 nights, this new venture we're doing. Fun show. Talking sports, talking superheroes, talking hip-hop. Today, in a couple of minutes, we'll be talking wrestling as well. So we're running the gambit on all things I love. So it's been a fun journey so far. Again, make sure you subscribe to the channel, Generation Media, on YouTube. Subscribe to the podcast as well. All versions of this show are posted, not just the video, but also the audio version to our podcast channel. Find that New Generation Podcast Network is what you'll search to find episodes of 40 Days, 40 Nights. All episodes get posted on there. And it's not just these episodes, because we got a bunch of other podcasts on there. We do Hero Talk, talking Marvel DC stuff. We do Imperial Broadcast, talking Star Wars stuff. We have a wrestling podcast, talking all things wrestling with my guy, Lucas Goldman, who's a former WWE writer. So we got amazing content, awesome, fun stuff. Make sure you support us wherever you can. If you're on the podcast channel, make sure you give us a 5-star review. If you could leave a written review, we greatly appreciate it. If you're on the YouTube channel, make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Liking the videos and comment on the videos. Again, we greatly appreciate you guys' support. This has been a fun first week so far. Tomorrow will be the last day of this week, 40 days and 40 nights, and I got after then 35 more to go. So we're trucking along here. But let's get to the NBA and some news that came down today about Jonathan Kuminga. So he is the forward for the Golden State Warriors. He was a former lottery pick, and he is officially, according to Shams Charania, demanding a trade out of Golden State. Shams reporting that the Warriors forward asked for this trade, and he is doing so because he has a completely fractured relationship with the organization. Let's hear from ESPN Shams Charania. Today, this was on NBA Today.
The Jonathan Kuminga Golden State Warriors relationship is fractured. It is non-existent, specifically the relationship between Steve Kerr and Jonathan Kuminga. It's been described to me as fractured beyond repair, completely deteriorated. And everyone in that Warriors building knows that Jonathan Kuminga wants out. He's been wanting a trade out of Golden State, and tensions have only risen over the last several weeks when he's basically been banished. He's the 4th highest paid player on the Warriors, but he has not been in the rotation. So the Warriors have been canvassing the trade market for Jonathan Kuminga. 2 teams that have stood out with interest, mutual interest. Jonathan Kuminga has interest in them. They have interest in Jonathan Kuminga, are the Sacramento Kings and the Dallas Mavericks.
Kind of a tough break that if you want to get out of there, okay, you can get out of here, but you're going to have to play with the Kings or the Mavericks, not necessarily places you want to be at this point. Kings, one of the worst teams in the NBA. Mavericks, also not that great and are in the midst of a fire sale. Though you get to play with Cooper Flag, that's pretty cool. Him and Cooper Flag seem a little bit redundant. So in terms of fit there, I'm not sure how much I love that fit. They would be a hell of a athletic, front line. If you got Flag at the 4 and Kuminga at the 3, you're going to need a lot more shooting, though. That would be a big thing. So, again, fit may be a little odd there, but those seem to be teams that are interested, and according to Shams, he's interested in them. This is unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate because it feels like there's a scenario where both of these sides should need each other, Jonathan Kuminga should want to play for a great organization like the Golden State Warriors, for a great coach like Steve Kerr, to play and learn from the likes of Draymond Green and Kerr and Steph Curry and the veterans that they have, Jimmy Butler. And that, you would think, would be a great place to cultivate young talent. And then on the flip side, the Warriors should need him. And one of the problems with the Warriors has been that it has not been a good place to cultivate young talent, which is why I think they're staring down the barrel of some really lean years very, very soon. Because whether it's Jonathan Wiseman, whether it's Jordan Poole, now whether it's Jonathan Kuminga, it's not like the Warriors haven't had opportunities at top lottery picks or high-end first-round talents and have absolutely pissed it away. Only way to describe it. They have pissed it away. They've either made poor draft choices, and now because you got the damage control that's coming out from what's happening today, you have, the reporting coming out that Steve Kerr was saying that he wanted Franz Wagner instead of Jonathan Kuminga, which, to be honest, at the time, they would have got crushed if they would have made that move. It's not like they were on a different stratosphere in terms of draft boards, but you were hard-pressed to find many draft boards that would have had Franz Wagner ahead of Jonathan Kuminga during that draft. They were around the same class. They were both top 10 prospects, but Wagner closer to the 10 side and Kuminga closer to the 5 side, where some people did think he was a top 5 prospect. So, could it be true? It definitely could be true. It seems like Kerr has never really loved this guy, so it doesn't shock me if that's the case. But it also does seem very convenient that Franz Wagner's turned into essentially an all-star player on a winning team in Orlando, and he seems to play the game the right way and all the things that you want out of a young star. And that's the guy that conveniently Kerr wanted, but he was talked down, and everyone else in the room decided that they wanted Kuminga instead, and now they have this disaster on their hands. It is very convenient. There's no doubt about that. There's no doubt. But the Warriors should want this guy. They should need this guy. You need somebody to help bridge between the Draymond, Steph era and Clay era, though he's not there right now, era Warriors, and then whatever the Warriors are going to be, you're going to need young star players to bridge the gap to whatever that next thing's going to look like. And Kuminga, given his talent, in theory, should be one of those guys. And they have not been able to develop him and cultivate his development in a way that allows him to coincide with that vision. So you have to give a lot of blame to the Golden State Warriors, because it's not the first rodeo with this. It'd be different if this was, I've seen them, this is the first time a young player has struggled to find their way with the Warriors. No, all of their young players fail to find their way with the Warriors. They run into a Draymond Green punch, or they can't get healthy, or they can't learn the offense, or they have this situation with Jonathan Kuminga. They all seem to have some kind of trouble. I think when we think about Steve Kerr, who I think is a great coach, a phenomenal NBA head coach, I think it's ridiculous for people to question in terms of like his greatness at this point. I mean, the guy has won 4 championships. He won without KD, won with KD. He's a great coach, but all coaches have flaws. All coaches have weaknesses, and I think when we think about what will we think about when we say it's great Steve Kerr, or what was his one setback, this is absolutely his Achilles heel as a head coach. He is terrible at developing young talent. He is terrible at getting young talent and young players to understand what it takes to be successful within his system. And it's going to ruin this organization. It's why I don't think Kerr is going to be there much longer. I know it's been this open secret about, his time could be running out. We don't know really what's going to happen. I think they know what's going to happen. I think they know that this is the end of the road. They're going to try to run out the year and see if these old guys can go on a one last push. They won't. They'll get bounced out of the first round of the playoffs or the second round if they get lucky. And that'll be the end. I think Steve Kerr's going to maybe go back to television. Maybe he'll look at other NBA jobs, but he's a guy I think I can see taking a sabbatical. He runs very hot. He's had health issues, obviously, as well. So he's someone that maybe could use some time off. And in that time off, I hope that, if that does happen, that he does kind of look a little bit in the mirror as to, like, how did it get this bad? The Warriors seem, because they had these weird years where, Kevin Durant left and Steph Curry was hurt and then they missed the playoffs here and there. Even though they won championships, they had opportunities in the draft to draft really good players potentially that you think, okay, like they have Steph, Clay, and Draymond, but they're going to get other young players in here. And given how they were able to develop those other guys, you would think that the next guys are going to come in are also going to be great. And they completely failed. So I think he's going to have to look in the mirror, and the organization is going to have to look in the mirror and say, What did we do wrong here that put us back in this position where we have another young guy where it's untenable to keep him here? It's untenable. And what's odd about it too is when Kuminga has played, and I'm not gonna be a box score kind of box score merchant guy, because I know the box scorers will say, listen, he's at games where he's at stretches where he's averaging 20, 24 points. The last 4 games of the playoffs last year when they had all those injuries and then he had to step in and play, the last 4 games I think he averaged 24 points. And there are times you look at him like, this guy looks like the best offensive player on the team. Now there are other things about his game that are problematic. He lacks focus. He lacks defense. He lacks he plays kind of selfishly. Like he does all the things that young players do. But there is some talent there. So the idea that they despite his obvious flaws, where he's not always paying attention, he's not always playing hard, he's not always giving the best effort, he's not always focused, he does have the ability to drop 25 on any given night. For a team that's 22-18, you can't tell me you don't need that. You can't tell me that there's no way that guy can't give you any kind of any kind of support in some kind of way. The fact that you can't, and the fact I'm not even denying that he is problematic for those other things. He very well could be. He could be killing them. But my point is the fact that you can't get him to focus enough or play good enough defense or to do the right things enough that you can get them 20 points a game, then you're failing as an organization. So that's where that's the smoke that I have for the Warriors when it comes to Jonathan Kuminga. Now, what I will say about Jonathan Kuminga, it's kind of what I posted on X, is that Jonathan Kuminga is like the Michael Jordan of Cam Reddishes. Like there are these guys who have these like huge high school reputations, and Jonathan Kuminga is absolutely one of those guys. If you follow high school basketball, and particularly because I'm from the New York area, he played at the Patriot School, which is a high-end, big-time basketball program in New Jersey. If you understand, you know that this guy was a number 1 prospect for years in the high school ranks. He was expected to be one of the next stars coming out of Jersey, one of the next college basketball stars eventually, though he didn't go to college basketball, went to the G League Ignite. And in the NBA, he was expected to be possibly a number 1 overall pick type guy. Sounds very familiar. Sounds a lot like Cam Reddish. And not Jersey, but all the other stuff, it sounds exactly the same. And then, like, when he plays, because of his athleticism and his moves and things, he does things on the court that a lot of guys can't do or only star guys can do. You look at him and say, huh, like that guy, man, it's the team, it's all, like, again, I get him to the Warriors, but he also takes some responsibility for this being a failure, too. Like, I want to stress that as much as well, because what I don't want to happen to him is what happened to Cam Reddish, which was everyone said, oh, it's Atlanta, it's all Atlanta's fault, and they don't know what they're doing, and he goes to the Knicks, and, oh, it's all the Knicks' fault, Tom Thibodeau don't give him a chance, and blah, 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 and then he goes to the Lakers, oh, actually, it's LeBron or someone else's fault. Like, it turned out Cam Reddish, for the talent he had, wasn't good enough to make up for those other things that I mentioned that Steve Kerr says he's had problems with. For Jonathan Kuminga, whatever his next stop is going to be, if he does want it to be a place where he could get paid the way he wants to, he's been playing on this terrible contract where he was a restricted free agent because of the way the salary cap rules work and because of the way the market was. There was no money. No one had money to give him. So he was kind of stuck. The Warriors weren't going to give him a big long-term extension, and no other team could offer him a contract. And the only contract that they could offer him were these cheap deals that the Warriors could have matched. So he kind of was in this pseudo holdout situation. It was a tough spot for him. And Shams Charania has reported today that things went crazy south during that negotiation. And he has told people, his teammates, people around the team, that he's only there because he felt like he had no choice but to sign that contract, which is true. It was either that or sit out. He had no other option. So with that whole situation going down, now he's going to be on a new team. He's on a terrible contract. He's on a bad situation. He's going to get traded by the February, I believe, 5th deadline is the date. But when he goes somewhere else, he's going to have to make the most of his opportunity. A team's going to give him a shot, but he can't expect also to say, all right, now that I'm free of the Steve Kerr reign, I can just go out there, play half-ass defense, not listen to the coaching staff or not run the offense, and I'm just going to drop my 25 and go home. I think that if he wants to have the career I think he has the potential to have, it's going to take for him also to grow too. It's going to take for him also to do the winning things necessary as well. And again, like I've said, it's not like he's going to be going to great situations. Dallas is a better situation than Sacramento because at least you got Jason Kidd and Cooper Flagg, but that is Cooper Flagg's team right now. And right now, technically, Anthony Davis is still there. So I don't know if Anthony Davis will still be there, but you got Cooper Flagg, who is the man and who kind of plays your position. So, again, think you can go out there and say, I'm just going to go out there and get my 20 and go home. It might not be that simple. You go to Sacramento, which is a complete dumpster fire. You got a terrible team, but you got some veterans on there. Levine, DeRozan, other guys. They're not just going to step aside and say, okay, young fella, you go out there and get 30, and we're just going to watch you do whatever. It ain't going to be like that way either. And that's a toxic locker room, a toxic situation. So, I say all that to say, you need to get out of there, but also be careful what you wish for, and also be ready to take whatever the necessary steps that you feel like you were unable to take because of the situation in Golden State being so untenable. So final thing before we get out of here, man, I want to talk some wrestling, something we haven't done in a little while, or at all so far on 40 Days and 40 Nights. But I was really excited about this news. You guys know, big wrestling fan, also a big gamer. So this is where kind of two of my interests kind of end up kind of coinciding because you got wrestling and video games coming together with some big news. I'm a big fan of WB 2K series. I love playing wrestling video games. And we learned today that it will be CM Punk who is revealed as the star of the WWE Showcase mode for 2K26. So what does that mean? Every year, well, not every year, which has been to the chagrin of some fans, but in most years, since 2K took over the license for WWE's major sim wrestling game, they put on this mode where it allows you to essentially play through either someone's career or the legacy of a certain event like WrestleMania, and you get to relive some of these iconic moments through the video game. It's extremely fun. They last year was the Bloodline. The year before that was John Cena. They've done 30 years of WrestleMania. They've done all these cool moments where you get to relive these things through a wrestling, through a video game lens, and it's just a fun thing. And people have always, every year, try to come up with what could be the next cool thing for them to do. I think they did an Undertaker one several times, and this year it's going to be CM Punk. CM Punk, who was obviously a massive star for WWE for a while, left the company under terrible circumstances in that he was injured and disgruntled and was suing the company, and it was a mess, and it seemed like he would never come back. Then he shockingly returned to WWE and surprised everybody just a couple of years ago, and he's been with the company for the last 2 years, and things that seem to be going great, and it's a great time here to see that he's being featured in this way, WWE 2K26. I'm super excited. I can't wait to get this game now so I can get to play these modes. CM Punk's one of my all-time favorites. The mode apparently will put you through some of those iconic CM Punk moments. So the ones I would expect to see, cashing in the Money in the Banks, first of all, probably winning Money in the Bank twice. The first guy to do that, or I guess second guy, him and Edge, but one of the few guys to do that. Cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase. Definitely got to do the number one is 2011 Money in the Bank, Cena versus Punk. Punk takes the title and leaves. That's going to be fascinating because I want to know, how does WWE 2K26 dance around the idea of Vince McMahon? Because Vince McMahon was very much inserted in that story. He made that story as iconic as it was. The iconic shot of CM Punk blowing the kiss as he's going into the stands, leaving the WWE title, and Vince McMahon staring there, looked like he had nothing he could do and being helpless. One of the absolute iconic moments in WWE history, probably the most iconic moment in CM Punk's career. Is Vince McMahon going to be in this game? Do I have to tell you guys? I think it's been very clear what's been going on with Vince McMahon and the legal troubles he's been under for sexual misconduct allegations. Are they going to throw him in this game? Is it going to be a different avatar? Is it going to be a different authority figure? Is it going to be Adam Pearce instead of Vince McMahon in this spot? I'm curious of how they're going to handle that. They also said, I also want to see, by the way, some other things. Obviously, number one, I thought someone made a good point online. Would love to see those matches with Jeff Hardy too. I know Jeff Hardy is kind of in this weird thing with WWE. So he's not in WWE right now, but the company has this relationship with TNA, where TNA and NXT kind of overlap. They're part of the same wrestling universe, so to speak. So we've actually gotten the Hardy Boys and Jeff Hardy back on WWE television, facing the likes of different NXT tag teams. We've not seen them on the main roster yet, and there hasn't been a TNA main roster crossover yet at all. But we have seen WWE programming having the Hardy Boys on television, winning NXT championships and all those things. Jeff Hardy also left the company in kind of bad terms. Like, he had, I don't want to speak out of turn, but he had a bizarre kind of moment at a live event where he kind of left immediately on the scene. It had people concerned, because Jeff Hardy's been very open about his issues with substance abuse, that may have been part of this. I know he has said that wasn't part of it, so I don't want to say something that's what it was. We won't know what it was. But he did leave on rough terms, where he AWOL'd the live event, then they couldn't find him, and then he was done with the company, and that was it. And then we thought that'd be the end of Jeff Hardy with WWE. But then again, we've seen them through this TNA deal. They have indeed been back on WWE television. Are they able to get Jeff Hardy in this game? We've seen Abyss, who now works for WWE, ironically, as a producer, but it was obviously a TNA wrestler. He was on WWE 2K recently, so will you get Jeff Hardy on there? Because I think a Jeff Hardy rivalry and those matches he had with Jeff were also iconic. I think you got to get that in there. Small thing, obviously the Undertaker match as well, WrestleMania. I think arguably, we talk about Undertaker's great WrestleMania matches. That one gets forgotten, in part because I think it was so much of a foregone conclusion for a lot of folks that Taker was going to win. But the build was amazing, and some of it was real life stuff, because unfortunately the passing of Paul Bearer coincided with it. And like wrestling, you really use real life stuff to coincide with what you're doing in story. And they had some great stuff regarding the stuff with Paul Bearer in that storyline. They had a killer WrestleMania match, probably the best match of the night in that WrestleMania in New York. I think that was WrestleMania 28, I want to say. I want to see that in there. I want to see the Brock Lesnar SummerSlam match. That's another. Punk, for his career, sometimes I feel like what I dislike about Punk's career, not that I dislike about it, but the conversations about it, is it feels like it gets narrowed down to only a few moments. It's only the pipe bomb, and it's only Money in the Bank, blowing the kiss. And then there's some things we talk about, but those seem to be the only ones we keep talking about. And it almost seems like, even in his wrestling character, he almost still has to always kind of reference those moments because it's so iconic for him. But I think he's had so many other great moments, and some of these other lost matches and lost moments that people forget about. Again, the Hardy rivalry, the Undertaker WrestleMania match, the Brock Lesnar SummerSlam match, which if you listen to our podcast off script, I think one of the last ones we did was we were ranking, I believe, the greatest SummerSlam matches ever. And both me and my guy Lucas had that match on there, which I was stunned by, because so many people forget about how great that match was. But that was an all-timer between Brock and CM Punk at a time when I don't feel like Brock was necessarily giving us all the time the greatest matches. He was a great character. He was a great monster heel. But that one was an absolute classic because it wasn't Brock squashing some guy. It was an actual great 20-minute match or so. I believe in Brooklyn, an absolute classic. So I hope to get to live those matches. The other thing about this too was they said that there will be matches that are dream matches that he didn't have, in part because he was gone for all those years. Between 2014 and 2013 and then 2024, that 9-year hiatus. Who in that stretch do you feel like you'd want to see in a kind of dream match that we didn't get during that time? Because I was trying to think of, he's had this feud with Seth Rollins, so we've seen the Seth Rollins match. He just had a WrestleMania triple threat that included Roman Reigns, so he's had a Roman Reigns match. That match, I assume that triple threat would be in this showcase mode, I would assume, but I'm not 100% sure. Who else became stars? He just had Drew McIntyre, this awesome feud that lasted over a year. They had a great Hell in a Cell match. That will probably be in this mix. But, who during that stretch of WWE time, which I would argue, some people would argue maybe it was a downtime for WWE, who did we miss? Who's the guy that he didn't wrestle that you'd want to see? It ain't going to be Dean Ambrose. They're not going to put Jon Moxley on there. So I was sitting there, I was trying to think, who are all these guys that we didn't get to see him wrestle during that time that we missed. He's had Daniel Bryan matches, and again, I don't think you're gonna see Daniel Bryan on there or Bryan Danielson. I was having trouble with that. I kind of wonder that it may end up being, oh, we're actually gonna put in, some Stone Cold Steve Austin, Roddy Piper, like some of his favorite wrestlers of all time, guys who would have been dream matches. Like everyone's always wanted to see that Stone Cold CM Punk match because of just those guys being two of the greatest talkers. A lot of CM Punk being such a fan of Stone Cold Steve Austin, Austin being also a fan of Punk and what he was doing coming up. That's always been the dream match people have waited for. We never got that one. So, but Austin wasn't wrestling between 2015 and 2024 either. So he had one match against Kevin Owens that one time late during that stretch. So again, where are all these guys? Are we talking about Finn Balor? Or are we talking about? I'm having trouble. I'm having trouble legitimately finding folks. He's wrestled Rey Mysterio. Like a lot of these folks, he has gotten in the ring with. So I was very curious about that part of this. Is who are these matches that we didn't get to see between 2016 and 2024 that we will get to play out in this game as stream matches? He's wrestled Randy Orton. I was having trouble with it. Will they infuse him in certain feuds that maybe he wasn't involved in, and maybe that's a way to kind of get around that? I'm curious. I'd love to see in the comment section if you guys have any thoughts on what you want to see from a CM Punk WWE 2K26 showcase mode. But I was having trouble. Figuring out what that would entail outside of the matches I mentioned. SummerSlam, Brock, WrestleMania, Undertaker, Money in the Bank, Jeff Hardy feud, these Hell in a Cell matches with the Hell in a Cell match with Drew McIntyre, the triple threat with Seth and Punk and Roman. I think you have a solo match between Punk and Seth on there as well. So it'll be a lot of fun. They're going to take my money. As soon as I saw this, I'm like, yep, I'm buying this one. This is one I'm definitely going to have to get. They did not say he's a cover athlete yet, which is kind of surprising because he seemed to be a lock. They already did Cody. They've done Roman. I kind of just assumed, it's got to be, what's the name? Bianca Belair's already been on the cover. So if it's not him, then who? Maybe it'll be an alternate thing where he's one of the covers, but maybe there's other covers because it's going to be a CM Punk mode. And that's another kind of fun game to play as well. It feels like Rhea Ripley is definitely due to be on the cover of WWE 2K. The company thinks of her in a super high regard, as they should. She's a mega star within the company for sure. So Rhea certainly makes sense. In terms of the male talent, I was having trouble kind of figuring out outside the main guys we've already seen. We've had Seth, we've had Roman. CM Punk's also already been on the cover for a long, long time ago. We had Cena. I mentioned Roman, I think already. If I did, we've had Roman. Who else? Are you doing someone young like Braun Breaker? We've had Cody. You're doing LA Knight, who seems to not be still been able to get that moment of him finally being pushed to the main event scene. He's been close, but not quite there. Is someone who's a little more up and coming. I'm curious to see when they finally come out with the cover, who the cover athlete would be. Because with this announcement, and they made it, they did not say for sure that Punk is the cover athlete. They said that he will be the featured star of W2K26, the showcase mode, which will be indeed a very exciting experience. That's going to do it for this edition of 40 Days, 40 Nights. This is our shortest version of 40 Days and 40 Nights. But it's been a fun show, no doubt. I want to make sure before I leave, because we're on this weird Kyle Tucker watch. The word was that he could sign as of today. And I just want to make sure that Kyle Tucker has indeed not signed. It does not appear that is the case. He is not signed as of yet, so we're still waiting to see where that's gonna go. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen with that. The word was that he could sign by 6 p.m. today. It is 7 p.m. Eastern time, and he is not signed yet. So, no idea what's going on with that. But the big news of the day still kind of remains that real quickly on the Kyle Tucker thing. There's a tweet here from Steve Cohen, who posted this when it comes to the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. I'll let you guys be the judge what this means. But this is what Steve Cohen had to say regarding what I think we all are looking for, which is when will Kyle Tucker sign? So Steve, let me know when you see smoke. which I know you probably can't see right now because there's a black screen. I'm waiting for this thing to pop up. Let me see. Let me see here. Hopefully this will come up soon. I want you guys to see this. Come on. Let's see. Let me just, what if I do this? Does that help? No, it seems only made it worse. Well, what he said here. Oh, there you go. Now you see it. So, Steve Cohen saying, let me know when you see smoke. I don't know if that's supposed to be a good sign if you're a Mets fan, that he's having fun with this. I would have to assume that's a good sign, right? That if he's having that much fun with it, he feels confident that they will sign him. If they were in a bad situation and the Mets fans are about to get more bad news, I would hope that Steve Cohen would be smart enough not to play light with the situation. But Steve Cohen has not always made the best decision when it comes to how he is moved on social media. So I don't know. But that is what he posted. So we'll still have to wait and see what's going to happen with Kyle Tucker. We also, in terms of the big news of the day, obviously was the hiring that's about to be official, if it's not official already, with John Harbaugh. We are learning that, again, Todd Monken, I mentioned earlier, expected to return with his former head coach. He was his OC with the Ravens. He's supposed to be also joining him with the Giants, apparently. Also, it sounds like Anthony Weaver, who is still getting head coaching interviews, but Anthony Weaver is being potentially eyed to be the defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. Anthony Weaver is highly regarded around NFL circles. The Dolphins' defense has not always played the greatest, so I've actually always been a little surprised at why he's been so highly regarded. Dolphins' defense to start the year was awful this year, and though to be fair, Weaver kind of had this kind of pseudo-viral moment when he talked about like what it's going to take for the team to turn around defensively. He talked about them having to be a violent group and to embrace violence. It was a great quote. It was a great moment. And the team actually turned around their defense. Ironically, he says this the night they're playing the Jets. So defense looked good then. But then they also played well after that stretch as well. And they played well down the stretch. But some of the people that have been talking about him as a head coach, when the concerns have been, all right, well, like, where's the track record of Anthony Weaver defenses being elite? Like, that, they don't exist. But he has been highly respected. He is highly regarded around the NFL. And he apparently is the guy that the Giants are apparently eyeing to be their defense coordinator, assuming he does not get a head coaching job. And again, he is up for head coaching jobs. He has been getting interviews. He's interviewing with the Steelers. They requested to talk to him. So still a long way to go with that. We'll have to wait and see how that ends up shaking out. But that's going to do it for this edition of 40 Days, 40 Nights. So much. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Of course, catch us wherever you catch us, man. YouTube, New Generation Media, X at EJ_Stewart, X at EJ. Make sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. Make sure you also follow our podcast, New Generation Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us a like and comment and review and all the good nine. Make sure you support us as much as you can. Much love. Thank you guys for checking out this edition. We'll be back for day 5 tomorrow. So much more to talk about. So much more fun to have. I'm EJ Stewart. Take it easy.